the mission is my life. That's my baby. God brought me there. I came straight out of jail, and 2-3 days out of jail, I came to the mission. And when I was in the program, as I was getting ready to graduate, I was thinking that, I want to be in ministry. And all I could think about was, I need Bible college. And I wanted to go to Bible college. And the only one that I would want to go to would be Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. And because I love Calvary Chapel style of just teaching through the Word. I just love it. So the director at the time, Dan, told me, Bryan, people aren't praying if they're going to help you. They're praying how much money they're going to give you. So I had people that were willing to fund that. But the thing is I just couldn't see. I got 3 kids, and they're all 3 running amok. I'm in the program. My wife living in the projects. I can't even go see her at the projects because they kicked me out of the projects in Eureka. So I was like, how am I going to get all my kids together and take them all down to Southern California to Costa Mesa and me go to Bible college, And it just didn't fit. There was just no way. I mean, what am I going to force my kids to? It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. And I was kind of frustrated. I told Dan, I said, I just don't know how it's going to work, Dan. And he goes, well, maybe God wants to use you here, Bryan. And it was like the lights went on. And I said, like, what do you mean? He goes, well, here at the ministry, at the mission. And I said, yeah, that would be totally awesome, And so he said, I'm going to put you at the thrift store when you graduate for about 2 or 3 months. He said, and I'm going to be moving some things around at the mission because things were not the best at the time. And he needed to replace somebody.
In terms of how it was run?
Yeah. Management they weren't compassionate. They just weren't. And the community was really suffering. And even talking with Betty Chin one time, this is years after that, but Betty had expressed to me that she didn't even want to drive by the mission at one time. I was like, wow, because I remember things were not really good on 2nd Street. And the mission wasn't really being a productive member in the community. It was pretty much just kind of a free-for-all. I got there after all of that bad stuff, but it still wasn't the best. I'm not knocking the people. They just did the best what they could with what they had. Well, anyway, so I graduated, went to work at the thrift store, and I worked there for about 3 months. Now, one thing that a preacher said one time that really came to light to me was that he said, a man who knows how will always have a job, but the man who knows why will always be his boss. And I thought, So God taught me why when I went to the thrift store, because I was pretty much just program and mission, and I loved the people, the homeless people. And when I went to work at the thrift store, I was at the back door receiving donations, and a vase. I remember a big, really pretty vase came in, and I took the pricing gun and I put 75 cents on that, and I put it in the little box to take out and put on the shelf. And it's like when I saw that 75 cents and I set that down, it's like the lights went on again. Is that 75 cents on that goes on the shelf. Somebody comes and likes it. They grab it. They put 75 cents into the till. That goes to the executive office. It gets counted and all the stuff our accountant does. And then from there, it goes to the bank. And then she writes checks for the power, the water, and all that stuff. And I realized that I was already a part of the ministry by pricing a vase. But I had something inside of me that I wanted to be more involved with the people. I wanted to be, receiving donations is great, and helping out in the store is great. And I knew, so it was, for me, it was a learning lesson to be at the thrift store for 3 months. And then finally realizing is that, I get it, because I was on the receiving end. And then I'm in the position of earning a check at the thrift store, but on the giving end. And so I went from there and I came back to the shelter. He made some adjustments, and I came in and I became a house manager. And so I worked from 3 to 11, I think. And I did that for a couple, 3 years. And then the director at the time had been down there with his office there working out of the mission shelter because he was getting things together. And then he had made a decision that he wanted to make somebody in charge of the men's shelter. And instead of it being called the operations manager, he said he's going to call it the men's shelter director. And so, I thought, And then he told me, he said, I really want you to do that, you know. And I was like, wow, okay, I can do it, yeah, because I'd already been pretty much doing it, you know. And so then I came to day shift, 7:30 to 6:30, 2:30 or something like that. And so I did that for like 5 years. And I remember, because I would meet with him every Wednesday. I would go over to the executive office over by the thrift store, and we would have a meeting, and we would talk about things going on and stuff. So I was in charge of the men's shelter and the women's shelter pretty much. And 10 years ago, I remember sitting in his office, and he leaned back in that leather chair, and he said, and he tapped the arms of the chair. It's like this. He goes, you know, Bryan, someday you're going to be sitting in this chair. And he did that. And I kind of leaned back in my chair, and I said, yeah, right. And he leaned up, and he says, no, I'm serious. He said, I've already talked to the board, and you're going to be the next executive director. He said, I'm taking a full-time pastoral job. And I said, oh, you're serious? And he looked at me, and he tightened his lips, and he said, yes, I'm serious. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to pray about this. I've talked to my wife about this. And I'll let you know. And he said, good answer. And so I came back, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll give you 6 months, and we'll see how things work out. And I said, but, you know, there's no guarantees that I'm going to fit the position or anything. And he was really pleased with my attitude coming in. And I thought whenever I came in there, I was going to change a lot of things. You know what I mean? Because there was things he was doing that I was really disagreeing with. Financial, or not so much financial, but some other things. So I became the interim assistant executive director for 6 months. And when I sat in that chair, I remember the day he called me. He said, are you ready? And I said, ready for what? And he goes, ready to move. And I said, oh, yeah. So I gathered my stuff up and went over to the office, and I sat in that big leather chair, you know. And then as weeks went on, information that was coming by, and me writing letters and dealing directly with donors and different things like that, I learned why. And some of those things that I said I was going to change, I knew why he made those decisions. And it broadened my view from just being at the shelter to more of a community view. Oh, I get it. So after 6 months, the board decided, nope, you're our guy. Get to the bank, get your signature on file, and that's when I became the actual official executive director. And you know, it's been an uphill climb ever since. And I felt like I had to be this business guy, you know what I mean? And to sit behind this desk and be an executive. And even my cousin Kelly, I told him, and he goes, you, an executive? And I was like, yeah, I know, it's weird. But I felt so pushed into this executive director mold that I had to be, and I felt like I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. And I watched a video on YouTube of Andy Bales, who's executive director of Los Angeles Rescue Mission on Skid Row. And so I was trying to connect with other directors, you know, and see what they did. And Andy, when he came on the YouTube video, he said, it was just like, man, I almost did a somersault, man. He said, I'm not your typical CEO. He said, you won't find me in an office behind a desk somewhere. And he turned around and he pointed down the street at all the tents, and he looked back at the camera. He says, you'll find me down here getting to know the people and getting to know their stories. And it was like, don't try to be somebody else. Just be who I called you to be, Bryan. And so I learned that I can still do administrative things. I don't spend a lot of time in my office. I do those administrative things, but I'm more comfortable dealing with the people, with employees, managers, making sure everything's running smooth. I don't micromanage people. I bring them in. I allow them to use their gifts and talents that they have and operate freely. We have meetings. We discuss things. I'm not a heavy-handed guy. I mean business, but I don't. I'm not a forceful person. There have been times when I've had to be forceful. I don't like it. I do it because I know it needs to be done. But you get a whole lot further in life when you create an environment that's free, that you can move and live and be who you are, and focus on saving people, man, saving lives. Spend some time with the heroin addict that comes in and just says, man, I'm just dying out here. You could say, well, I don't know what to tell you, probably ought to stop doing that heroin. No, it's come on in the office, man, let's talk, And you get them hooked up with services, they get on Suboxone, they get off that stuff, and eventually they get off Suboxone, and they're just free flying, Those are the kinds of things I really enjoy.